welcome. Today's topic is immigration law. And with me are two lawyers from one of the country's most respected immigration law firms, which just happens to be based here in Philadelphia. We are so lucky. The name of the firm is Classico Immigration Law Partners. So let me first welcome partner Andrew Zeltner, who we're going to refer to as Drew more comfortably, and senior associate Maria Mihaylova. Thank you both for being here. Both of these attorneys handle a wide array of corporate immigration matters, including ones involving the processing of permanent resident applications, otherwise known as green cards. You probably heard of those. And those involving also helping U.S. companies with employment-based U.S. immigration services. And yes, they do it all, much, much more. Their clients run the gamut from major companies, startups, medical, educational, and research institutions, international students, and foreign nationals, and yes, to even engaged and married couples. I like to say they've seen it all and they've helped people so much. So let's get ready to learn about immigration law. Hi, Drew. I know you handle a wide variety of immigration law issues. Tell us about the types of clients you're working with.
Sure. Well, first off, Stacy, it's a pleasure to be with you and a pleasure to be here in person as well.
It is.
As you noted, our practice really runs the gamut to small startup companies that may start off with one or two employees who are impacting the world with regards to climate change or medical advancements, to more mid-sized companies and larger Fortune 500 companies that we've all heard of and know and whose goods and services we rely upon. So one of the things I love about my job is I'm working in a different area every day that I come to work, helping these companies retain and keep the foreign talent that they need to bring into the U.S. to grow and to thrive, and it's truly a joy to have that part of our practice, be a part of our practice every day. So we really work to partner with our clients to figure out what their needs are. Do they need an employee just to come on an intermittent basis every so often? Does someone just want to work in the U.S. for a temporary 2 or 3 year period and then come back home, right? Or does someone look to the U.S. as a place they want to be permanently and pursue that green card status that you talked about, and ultimately perhaps even one day become a citizen, which is just incredibly gratifying for us as lawyers to see that through. So it's really about planning, understanding what each client's needs are, and working with the business and the individual as well, right? Because in immigration, we're just not representing the company, right? We're representing an individual, their family, their ability to come live and work in the U.S. is on the line. The ability for their children to be here and be in school, is impacted as well. So it's very much a people-centric practice, which is what really attracted me to the practice 20 years ago, and I've been here ever since.
And you mentioned earlier, before I turn to Maria, you mentioned earlier something about contributing to the economy. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? How when these folks come into work, they are paying taxes, they are contributing to the economy?
Absolutely. I mean, immigration is just a key driver for economic growth. I mean, we'll give you some figures later in the program on the successes that immigrants have with regards to starting up, new companies and creating jobs.
Yes.
And our economy truly benefits from that sort of entrepreneurship. And immigrants, of course, are our risk takers historically. Like, they're much more likely to want to start that new business and take those risks. And we all benefit from it because when they're here, they're consumers, right? They're buying houses, they're spending money, they're paying taxes.
Yes.
So they're absolutely contributors to the fabric of our entire economy.
That's so interesting, and I love hearing about that because it makes it feel like such an incredibly positive, necessary thing. So Maria, tell us more about the types of clients you represent.
I, much like Drew, work with clients that span the gamut of individuals up to large corporations. But setting aside the large corporations where you work mainly with HR, with human resources, in order to enable them to operate and find talent that they're currently lacking for complex roles, I guess my passion is working with the smaller entrepreneurs and investors, because we actually have a lot of those. As Drew mentioned, immigrants contribute to the economy, whilst we represent, because I came in as an immigrant and as an international student in 2004, whilst we represent barely about 13.7% of the total US population, an immigrant is 4 times more likely to start their own entity, and an entity started by an immigrant has a much higher likelihood of success and actually being established. For example, about 55% of corporations that are now with revenues in the billions were started by immigrants or children of immigrants. And about 45% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants as well. So working with an entrepreneur, a foreigner that comes here, has a business idea and wants to actually create the entity, brings in so much interesting work for us, because we don't just get to help the individual, we get to help them set up an entity that will eventually hire Americans, that will eventually be paying taxes, and there will be job creation. And on the side, you know, when they actually return several years and you continue to assist them through the process, it's wonderful to see them grow, and it's wonderful to see them start working with the $1 billion, 500 companies on contracts for the services or the creations that they have. A lot of our clients that are individual are either professors or researchers, scientists that are propelling a lot of the fields forward that are of utmost national importance. We also work with a lot of international students. Those professors and extraordinary scientists a lot of times have to start their careers in the United States by just studying here as international students. And as an international student, then there's a lot of issues on how you can make sure that you're always legally in the US. What is allowed as an international student, what is not allowed, and every single action can affect the ability to either remain in the US or to ever come back to the US. So we do a lot of advising, especially because I came in as an international student to the US. That is another little passion project of mine. I love speaking to international students and advising them. A lot of times the things we have to advise on is, can I work? Where can I work? How can I work? I fell in love, I want to get married, which is where the family-based portion of our practice also comes. We are fully able and do accommodate and work with engaged couples and married couples, expat US citizens who are living abroad but want to relocate, and it just so happens that when they were living abroad they fell in love, got married, and now need to bring their families over here. What other clients do we have, Drew? I think that
I'm exhausted. It's okay.
I think that kind of covers a very stable
We have
gamut.
full days, but I would
Yes.
just want to repeat that 45% figure that you noted of startups being founded by immigrants or the children of immigrants. Think about how that enriches our country and our society, and what our economy would be like if those companies were not started here and they were started somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things that I think we really need to correct in our discourse is that immigrants are job creators and job drivers. They're not taking jobs away from U.S. citizens, they're creating jobs for U.S. citizens, right? So, you know, folks may be entitled to their own opinions, but they're not entitled to their own facts. And those are the facts about you know, how immigrants drive, you know, economic growth and help our country remain vibrant.
Right, and you know, I think a lot of people get hung up on the word illegal immigrants, and what you both do and what the firm does is make sure everything is legal so that all these happy endings can occur as you just described.
Absolutely. And if the average person knows the, you know, the multiple hoops that companies and individuals have to go through to stay on the right side of the law,
Yeah.
I think they would be amazed by the maze, you know, that really is immigration law.
I didn't even know
today.
there were hoops, so you just telling me that, I'm sure that there's so much you have to prove to become legal
and
here.
actually learning the hoops and just being aware of the number of hoops people have to jump through makes it a little bit easier to understand that big number that everyone refers to with respect to illegal immigration. Setting aside the fact of, thinking of just the human stories and the reason of why someone would want to come to the US,
Right.
a very large portion of those undocumented immigrants or foreign nationals are just people who were not able to jump through the hoops correctly, but have spent such an enormous time in the US that it would be much harder to just start from zero in a different country. So it's a very, very versatile field, but it's with its complexities, it's one of the most beautiful fields. And just again, I'm a foreigner. I love the American legal system. I come from Eastern Europe during the changes where we did not have one.
Wow.
So I have to say that for the rigidity and the complexity of this immigration legal system, there's so many opportunities and options. It's just a matter of how the public and Congress thinks about immigration. Just we have to kind of rewire our brain. It's the 21st century. People move left and right. They travel not just for pleasure, and businesses grow, and services get shipped from left and right. So the purpose of the immigration system should not be legal versus illegal. It should be facilitation of what we need, which is to an extent happening, but not really.
Right, and the reality, Stacy, is the world is getting smaller. If we've learned anything over the last 2 years, it's you can accomplish a great deal with just a stable internet connection, right? That's how we've worked.
That's true.
So, our borders are international with regards to international business these days, right? You can be, on a video call speaking with individuals, as I do, all over the world, right? And we have to recognize that.
Well, let's talk about labor shortages. We've all seen the help wanted signs
Absolutely.
all over cities in America and even suburban cities. So talk to us about that. Would sponsoring immigrant workers be a potential solution for that?
It has to be part of the solution, and it's part of the solution to the labor shortage, and it's frankly part of the solution to the supply chain shortage. If you've tried to buy a car recently, right, I'm sure you've had the experience of the dealership telling you, right, there's a shortage of semiconductor chips. Well, those chips are in cars, those chips are in appliances, those chips are in mobile phones, right? And our clients are working to directly, impact those areas, right, and stop these shortages, right, and are facing a very difficult time working through our immigration system to obtain the workers, in the U.S. that they need to effectuate change in these areas. I mean, I myself went to buy a car a few months ago and was told I'd have to wait 6 months, right, to get the car that I wanted. If you go to the supermarket and you see the rationing of infant formula, for example, you see the supply chain disruptions there. So immigration has to be a part of the solution, or I fear that we're going to see these shortages linger and certainly become worse.
So, Maria, what kind of companies or industries might benefit the most from this kind of strategy?
This is actually a wonderful question, because everyone can benefit from sponsoring immigrants. Just by virtue of the individuals and the startups and the companies I work with. Yes, there are certain companies that are very much attuned to the need, and there is very clearly identified high-skilled shortages in those areas: nurses, physicians, research and development in the field of medicine, to begin with. So hospitals, academic institutions, and education, healthcare, those institutions are naturally and historically been recognized as needing immigrant workforce to actually function properly and serve American people. But technology is one of the hottest topics today, and tech businesses that are springing everywhere, and that's the largest portion of startups that we're having, and research and development in the tech field. That field is propelled very much by immigrants who are exploring new ways for the computers to behave. This is how, machine learning in recent years is growing. It's a highly specialized field where it's extremely hard for the companies to find qualified talent, unless that talent, as so often happens, to be an international student pursuing a degree with a lot of experience already behind them in developing various new solutions for us as users. But in addition to those two big fields that traditionally have relied on the immigration system and immigration recognized them as users, I have worked with a lot of customer service providers and service providers, retailers, again, education institutions, one of the biggest alternative user. I've worked with cosmetic companies, with fashion designers, with jazz clubs and karaoke bars.
Just to
who
bring,
needed
yeah.
just to bring the talented person who would need to manage the operations for expansion. It doesn't matter what the industry is, we see that need everywhere. Mm-hmm. If you actually think about the current biggest need that we actually have, speaking of shortages,
yeah.
In addition to the specialized knowledge, currently restaurants are understaffed.
Yes.
Amazon can't find workers for their storage facilities.
Right.
Everyone's understaffed. It's
Exactly.
pervasive. I
Right.
mean, right? I mean,
Whilst-
just walk down the street and it's just
Whilst
or hire
those
someone.
jobs,
Yes.
they seem unskilled, so technically, hypothetically, we shouldn't want immigrants to do them. But those are jobs that we can benefit help from immigrants on. We already have programs for the agricultural needs of the United
yeah.
States, and we already have programs for lower seasonal work type of
That
landscaping.
makes sense. Totally makes sense.
And there are programs for unskilled workers whenever there's a need. And currently we can absolutely benefit from those as well,
Yeah.
to fill in that need.
Well, let's talk about the pandemic. And Drew, it certainly has affected everything. Has it affected time, processing?
The pandemic has had a palpable effect on our immigration system, and we're still very much in pandemic mode, even as we sit here today. The Immigration Service, right, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, right, which is the government agency that regulates immigration, which
Yes.
is part of the Department of Homeland Security, is not immune to the labor shortages, right, that exist in our entire
they need people too.
economy. Absolutely. And, Maria and I are seeing, processing times that we've never ever seen before in our practice.
Years, weeks?
Stacy.
Years.
Sometimes 4 to 5 year posted processing times for adjudication of an immigration benefit, right? I don't think people know that. We're also experiencing now when we file a case that we're not getting confirmation of that filing for weeks on end.
So people really don't know what's going on. Companies can't
exactly.
depend on the workforce coming.
Right, and it raises the frustration and stress levels of the individuals who are here contributing to our economy. And it's just not U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, it's also the Department of State. Because if you need to travel and get a visa, you need to do that at a U.S. embassy abroad.
Right.
And the Department of State regulates that, and you need a visa appointment.
Wow.
So, imagine, for example, that you're one of our clients, you've come from, India, for example, you're a researcher, you're working on, cures at a hospital for cancer or epilepsy, and, you simply want to take a trip home, or you want to visit an ailing grandparent, and you're here in valid legal status, right, working, and you're told by the embassy that the soonest you can get an appointment with them is September of 2023. That's happening now. Right, so it's not just the stress of maintaining your legal status, right, and being here in legal status and working for your employer, but people's lives are so impacted, and the Department of State is still kind of currently staffed at pandemic levels.
Wow.
Our embassies, depending on the specific embassy and the situation in that respective country, are staffed anywhere from 25 to 40% or so of their normal staffing levels.
I had no idea.
So I don't think it's something that most folks know. So a big part of our days sometimes for Maria and I are making these expedite requests to the embassies. Essentially,
you can do that.
You can do that, but it's discretionary, and we essentially have to beg them and pull the heartstrings to get them to give folks appointments earlier, and it's no guarantee. So we've been on phone calls where there may be an ailing grandparent who's dying,
Right,
who's very ill,
right.
and we're telling our client, we don't know if we can get you back. And I don't know that there's a worse thing you can possibly
So they can
have
get
to
there,
tell
they just
someone.
can't get back.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then they can't work in the U.S. if they can't come back. And if they want to work abroad, well, then you're creating international tax and employee benefit problems. So, our agency, immigration agencies right now are floundering. I think the Biden administration's heart is in the right place. It's certainly a different experience for us over the prior administration of the last 4 years. I have a few less gray hairs than I accumulated over that time. But the reality is they have not effectuated the substantive change that we need. Right? These are people who are here legally. They're doing it right. They're going through all of the hoops that they need to go through. And I don't think people understand how difficult it is. And they face all of these headwinds. We're not making it easy, frankly, and other countries are, like Canada, for example, New Zealand. They're looking to capitalize on our continued need to continue shooting ourselves in the foot with regard to our policies. And they're saying, here we're open. We're open for business. We want your startups to open up here, and that's what we're competing against too. I mean, we're also in a worldwide competition for the best talent.
Yes.
As well. So, we're dealing with a lot of anxiety these days.
For sure. Maria, can you tell us briefly what's Congress doing about immigration issues? Just a snippet, not too many legislation.
Oh, well, it will be a snippet.
Okay.
In one word, nothing. So
that is
there's much talk and there's no action, much like what we have grown used to seeing.
I see.
And what Drew indicated is correct. The administration's heart is in the right place. We hear all the right things, but we don't see anything being done. And we as practitioners have given up on the idea that we will see something done. Where we see things being done are really at the agency level. There's the changes that we're trying to, we can see clearly that the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State are trying their best, even though they're severely understaffed. Now, it would be wonderful if we can, if Congress could do something to untie the hands of their agencies so the agencies can continue to execute the programs properly. But thus far, that has not been done. We are seeing immense backlogs and delays that are created in the agency within the United States, which oversees all the people that are here physically and are not U.S. citizens or green card holders. And we are seeing the attempts of the Department of State to get more control over what is happening at the embassy posts, handling the Ukraine crisis, and redistributing cases and dealing with a humanitarian crisis on top of the skeleton crews that they currently have. The things that the agency has proactively tried to do in order to continue processing cases and to continue facilitating the lives of people that are in the United States, they have tried to expand a special offering that they have for expedited processing to a number of applications that were not eligible before. People that are working in the national interest of the United States are now eligible to actually seek expedited processing, and certain other highly specialized professional workers that are being sponsored by their employers. That particular expedited processing makes a world of a difference. Simply because whilst it comes at a very steep price tag, it's about $2,500 currently, just to ask immigration to not take 9 months to adjudicate your case, but to take between 15 days and 3 months, let's say, depending on how many questions they might have.
Which is vastly better, being that those cases have been pending for almost 2 years in some instances, right? And the reason I think you're seeing the executive action is that's the only place the administration can go, right? The legislative avenue really has been foreclosed because we're in a 50-50 Senate, as we all know. When you look at other bills on spending and climate change, there's not 60 votes in the Senate to do anything. So that's just the reality. And after November, if you believe the conventional wisdom, it's only going to get worse because the Republicans are likely to take over control of the House of Representatives. The Senate, I think, is still, a little bit more in play. Perhaps the race right here in Pennsylvania between Lieutenant Governor Fetterman and Dr. Oz may have something to say about the Senate majority, but divided government is likely to continue. So, my hopes, I don't think we're going to see comprehensive immigration reform anytime soon. Okay. That's going to leave the administration to taking executive actions, some which may be close to the line of the law as to how far they can go. But I think that's where they probably need to go, because it's not going to happen through the halls of Congress anytime soon. I sincerely hope I'm wrong, but I think that's the reality.
Well, one thing I'm learning is there's a lot of tape involved. There's a lot of hoops, as you mentioned. So you really can't do this without skilled attorneys helping you.
No, I think there's a misconception, right, that you file a few forms and you kind of instantly,
that's what I thought. Go to the post office,
in status, and individuals have no idea what the process is. And we also have safeguards in place to protect the interest of U.S. employers as well. So for some green card applications, right, an employer has to go out and demonstrate that they can't find minimally qualified U.S. workers, right? That was the initial step.
They can't find anyone here, so they have to have.
Right. And I think in all reality, right, people, companies are not paying us because we're so pretty, right? I mean, they're doing it because there's a need, right? Because they legitimately have, a labor need. And frankly, too, our world is just more global. And that's not going to change.
Well, in the remaining minute that we have, what do you want the audience to know? What are 2 takeaways you want them to take to the bank?
For me, it's proper planning. A lot of folks think that they can, come in on a tourist visa, for example, and work in the United States, and that's just incorrect. If you're going to work a day or you're going to work a week, you need work authorization. So you have to speak with an attorney to figure out what your goals are and what visa type is right for you based on your needs. Okay. So really, proper planning, Stacy, as I think with everything in life, a little bit of thoughtfulness will go a long way and serve you well.
And if you want to work one day at that lemonade stand, you still need work authorization.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you're going to do it, don't tell me, because I don't want to know.
Maria, one takeaway.
My one takeaway is immigration is everywhere, and immigrants don't steal jobs. They create them.
Immigrants create jobs.
That's how we've always run. We didn't run on Dunkin', we ran on immigration since the country has been created.
Well, you've told a beautiful story today, and I know that in talking with you both, you have success stories that run on and on. You've made many businesses happy, more productive, increased revenues. You've brought over people who have wanted to be here for so long and be proper citizens. So I think it's fascinating, and I really appreciate that. You raised so many great points today. I want to thank you both so much for giving us all this information. It's a lot. So I want to tell the audience to reach these lawyers. Note the contact information that's appearing now on the screen. We're going to leave it up for a few more seconds in case you need to grab a paper and pen. The website is, as you can see, clascolaw.com, and I'm sure that both of our folks today would be happy to answer any questions and to help. Well, thank you both so much.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
You.
And thanks for watching, everyone. If you have any topics that you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please just send the station a note. We're going to show the station's contact number here as well, because we'd love to make sure that you're getting the kind of legal education that you're looking for. I'll try to make those shows happen. So until next time, be safe and be legal. Bye.